All right, well, Bernie, I appreciate you coming on to talk to us today about the late great Bob Nalbandian as we pay tribute to the wonderful man he was. I know most people I've been talking to for this tribute, they tend to, when I ask them when the first time they remember, meeting Bob or their first experience with him, a lot of times they have a hard time remembering because they said he was always just everywhere in the LA metal scene in those earlier days. So for you personally, I mean, what can you recall maybe the first time you met Bob or the first experience you've ever had with him going back to those early days?
If I recall correctly, it had to be the country club.
Okay.
We played the country club a lot, and Bob, I guess the first time he saw us, he just kept following us. I mean, he kept up with us,
Mm-hmm.
and after a while, you start seeing the same guy,
Mm-hmm.
and you go like, hey, that's I'm Bob, hey, what's up, Bob, and after that, it was like, before you knew it, we were always inviting him backstage to hang out with us, and I think he had a rag at that point in the magazine,
Mm-hmm.
doing his thing. I think he put us in the magazine, because he really dug what we were doing, and of course we were different,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and
Mm-hmm.
but he stuck to it like glue. He just like a shoot right to it, not even a head trip at all. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because during those days, I mean, when we came out, we had to push through a little bit, because
Sure.
people were like, "Oh my God," they're all black, and they're
Mm-hmm.
playing heavy metal,
Mm-hmm.
hard rock, Bob was just like, chink, straight to the point. Yeah, what's up? What's up? That was it.
Yeah, no, that's also, yeah. I was going to actually ask you. Obviously, during those days, I'm sure you had as many detractors as you did supporters because of that. And I know Bob. I've known him for 16 years, and he just always talked about sound barrier and what a fan he was. Not just to the band, but you guys as people. More importantly, I mean, really overall, I guess how important really was he? I guess in to the band in terms of really, like you said, pushing you guys and being there at a time, even using maybe some of his connections in the business, really at a time where I'm sure not a lot of people were actually doing that for you guys.
That's true. Um, Bob, like I said, at first he had a magazine, but he was always connected to other people.
Hmm.
I mean, and he was always turning on other people to us. Metal Blade got turned on, I think, through us or John
Sutherland.
Sutherland.
Oh,
But
Sutherland, yeah.
yeah, those guys. Bob was always talking us up. Always showing up to every show. That kind of thing, and whatever he could do, Bob would do. It's just
Hmm.
simple as that. And
Yeah, no, no doubt. I know obviously, you guys were Sound Barrier, you guys were on MCA back in '83 when you put out Total Control. And obviously, you said you were on Metal Blade a couple of years later with Speed of Light. And I know guys like Bob and obviously, Brian Slagle who put out the record, they were behind the band, I guess, at a time where, like I said, a lot of people probably either just forgot about you or ignored you, like it happens all the time in music, right? Once a band, once these new up and coming bands come, they just kind of quickly forget the other bands. But I know he was always saying he was very loyal, I know, to you guys. And he really just believed always in Sound Barrier as a band with the music and everything. So I mean, how really, I guess I would say, important was he in terms of really just sticking with the band and being behind you guys during those days when people probably were just sort of like ready to move on and forget about Sound Barrier at that point.
well, I mean, like I said, his loyalty was the biggest focus.
Hmm.
Um, he really didn't have that kind of power to place us somewhere. What I mean,
Hmm.
but it was just his. He always wrote about us if he had a chance,
Hmm.
and he always came to every gig. Um, that was that kind of thing you don't really see too much when that kind of loyalty, and every time you see him or run across him, it's always the same vibe.
Hmm.
He was like, "Oh, Bernie," and they say, "Hey," he put together that metal um, series,
Hmm.
the
Yeah, Inside
what was it
Metal.
called, the Inside Metal.
Hmm. Yeah, okay. There you go.
So yeah, he put us in a prominent space,
Mm-hmm.
which gave us, in his documentary, which gave us, I'm sure a lot of people saw that. Some people called me up and say, "Man, I just saw this documentary," and I say, "Oh yeah, that's Bob Nalbandian, that's
Mm-hmm.
what he does. He and Carl Alvarez."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, they pushed us like whatever they could do, and that was a big one because he's asked us, could we be in there and use music? I said, oh sure, for sure,
Mm-hmm.
to
Yeah.
complete that documentary because there were several other offers for us because there was not a band like us during that period
Mm-hmm.
for us to do documentaries or be a part of a, box set, that kind of thing. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes he would call on that, and if he had information, got wind of something, and then we'd have to decide if we wanted to be involved. But yeah, we would be the band that Bob would always push.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, like you said, I mean, yeah, Inside Metal, I know you said you were featured very prominently in that. Obviously, he had that T Radio V, I know, series he did as well.
Uh huh.
I believe he had you on that. And I
That's
think,
right.
yeah. And I think a
That's
lot of
right.
people, right? Yeah, I think a lot of people also, really know, I think, about, like you said, they know about the band probably more than ever at certain points because of that, because he didn't make sure you guys weren't just a blip on the radar and forgotten about. He really did, like you said, include you in all those documentaries and everything. So yeah, he obviously, I think, do you think, how important was he, I guess, really to even just keeping the band's significance and relevance to today? I mean, you guys obviously know about a handful of years ago, I know you did some things with Tom Morello. So now
That's right.
Soundbarrier is definitely a name that people maybe they didn't hear about 10 years ago. Now they definitely have, and I'm sure he probably had a lot to do with that in certain ways.
Yeah, you never know how it goes, through word of mouth and stuff. Because Bob was like that kind of guy, always spreading us.
Mhm.
Because I mean, I still get hit on YouTube, channel from Brazil or something, and some 25-year-old guy told me that he got turned on to Sound Barrier from his dad, and I'm like, cool, and it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, we were just watching it on the YouTube, and I said, who is that, and that's,
Oh, wow.
you never know what, because Bob had his hands everywhere,
Hmm.
he was always in the stuff.
Hmm.
So I even did he hooked me up with a Swedish guitar player a couple of years after Sound Barrier. I forget his name now, but he hooked me up with him, and we cranked out about 6 songs or so,
Hmm.
and Bob was carrying that around, showing that to different people.
Wow.
And it was just like on a 4-track, just demo, I mean, real demo stuff, and it was
Hmm.
just, but we started cranking out some nice songs, and that was over at Bob's house here in North Hollywood.
Oh,
He
wow.
said, hey, I want you to meet this dude,
Hmm.
and then he knew me. I hadn't heard of him, but then Bob turned me on to his history, and we started cranking out a couple of songs. So that's how Bob works.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I know he was just a great guy. I mean, Bernie, I appreciate you coming on and just taking some, time here to talk about him. Just any last words you want to say about Bob, or if you could say one thing to him, maybe if you ran into him again, what would you tell him? I mean, just I guess wrap it up by giving a little ode to Bob.
Yeah, yeah. I got the email or message on Facebook that he was gone, and I didn't
Hmm.
know. So it hit me hard, because if we were together, we would always, do shots together,
Hmm.
go to the restaurant and eat together, go around to the Roxy and get a pizza. I mean, it was like that, the rainbow. We just sit up there and just if he's in there and I walk in there, he go, Bernie, come on over, come on over here. What, you want some pizza, man? Let's do a shot. And it's like always the
Mhm.
same. That's the one thing. You
Yeah.
can't say that about people. A lot of people always the same.
Yeah.
So yeah, Bob was yeah, if you know how certain people hit you in your mind and your heart, that's Bob.
Joe Floyd. Joy, thanks for coming on and talking about Bob with us. How you doing, bud?
I'm great, man. How you doing, Matt?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks so much. Joe, I mean, the first question I'm pretty much asking everyone, what was, if I guess the first time, when was the first time you met Bobby, you ran into him, if you can remember that far back? I know it's a while, but
Yeah, no, I remember it very well because really I met Bob when it was at my birthday party that my friend AC threw, and so I was starting to work on a documentary that my producing partner Warren had said, you should do a documentary about the LA rock scene back in the day. And I was like, okay, I'll try that. And I really didn't have a plan for it. I had a camera and that was it. So AC said, hey, Bob does journalism and stuff. He's deep in the scene, loves it, so you should talk to him. And so I went over and met Bob and said, hey, what do you think about doing a documentary? And he was on board right away. So we connected, and that was where our journey began.
Oh, very cool, very cool. Now I know, obviously, Bob was always a big fan and champion of the band of your band Warrior back in the '80s. I know. I think I saw the other day he had featured the band in one of his Headbanger zines. I think it was in one of the editor's playlists or something. Do you remember when you were coming up with Warrior? Do you remember the Headbanger at all when that was in and around Southern California at the time?
Do I remember the Headbanger magazine?
Yeah, Bob's fanzine.
Honestly, no, I don't recall it, but it's I might have seen it, but yeah, I didn't really read a lot of mags and stuff in those days, except maybe like Cream and some of the European ones, when I pick one up. But
sure. Yeah. So now, when you were working with Bob, obviously doing the Inside Metal documentaries, obviously those are very heralded. I mean, everybody's been talking about what great insight. I mean, when I was watching those documentaries, it was great because there was a bunch of bands I hadn't really heard of before, especially in the earlier parts, like the late '70s, early part of the decade of the '80s in LA. And I know, obviously, with Warrior, I know you guys originally from San Diego, and then moved up to LA. But when you were doing the documentary, I mean, how much of I guess a resource was Bob? Bob's always been known as this walking encyclopedia of metal.
oh
Especially
God,
for LA.
yeah, Bob was totally invaluable. I mean, I guess it was serendipity that we met, because if I would have tried to pull it off without Bob as an ally, it never would have happened. So it was definitely meant to be, and he took the reins. He grabbed the bull by the horns. Really, it became his documentary, honestly, and he just went to work, rounded up all the interviews. We did a lot of them right here at my house, out on the back deck, and it was great because I knew a lot of the people, of course, peripherally and some as friends, and so it was great opportunity to reconnect, and it just turned into an adventure. It definitely had its challenges. I'll say that it's not an easy thing for every hour documentary. It's 100 hours of footage that has to be sorted, edited, and he just had the right mindset to dive in, organize it, look at creating the overall start to finish and visualize it. So yeah, Bob was just awesome, amazing.
Now, when you guys started doing the series, did you know that you were going to be doing that many? I think was it 5 of them? I believe 5 episodes. Excuse me, 5 different documentaries. I think for each period. Did you know like there was going to be that much of it going into doing this, or you just think you were just going to do one?
No, the original plan I think was just the one. And see how that goes. we
Mm.
weren't quite that ambitious to think we could do that, do, you know, a whole series. But the first one had so much material, so much footage, that it grew, and then it was like, okay, this has to be 2 episodes. It's just too much. And you know, again, kudos to Bob for doing that. Especially the editing part is so tedious and really requires incredible dedication, and he had it. Absolutely amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now with obviously meeting and working with Bob, you know, during the documentaries, I mean, did you guys, you know, obviously what a lot of people obviously always talk about Bob is, you know, he's really one of the most genuine, you know, and trustworthy and honest kind of, you know, person one of the most honest people you're gonna meet, you know, very genuine, which, as you know, a lot of people have been saying, obviously, who've worked in the music business, you don't find that too often. You know, obviously music business is a cutthroat thing, as everyone knows, and you know, to find a guy like Bob, a guy, you know, you could really count on, rely on, was, you know, few and far between. I mean, would you agree with that, especially in terms of, you know, how you've obviously been in the music business for so long? I mean, do you agree with that, and that Bob was definitely someone that you could turn to, and, you know, he was just a genuine and honest guy that you know you could count on?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, as I came to know Bob, and we hung out together and went on these adventures, and yeah, that's it. He was just such a soulful guy, and he had great trust between us, and you know, I knew I could count on him to stick it out, and he wasn't flaky at all. You know, he was just a really cool and passionate human that I fell in love with. Honest, you know, he very inspired me to carry it through and do our work, and that's how we became friends. And then we started, you know, just hanging more and drinking beers together, and Toby, you know, was sort of a friend too, and we'd hang out with him, and then we brought Carl into the mix and traveled up to the Bay Area to interview Metallica, and we went to Vegas, and so we had a lot of fun adventures together and became, you know, good buds.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, anything, you know, I mean, we want to just sort of get people to talk maybe about one story or so that they had, Bob. That the first thing that comes to mind, you know, one of the most memorable times that they've had with Bob. Would you mind sharing just a story that you have with him that comes to mind?
Well, I don't know. There's a lot of stories, but our adventures on the road, I guess, would be the things that kind of stick in my mind. You know, taking these drives, and you know, hanging out. We would go, like when we were in Vegas, we would do an interview, and then we'd still be all kind of pumped up. So we'd go out and hit a club or you know, a bar, and
Mm-hmm.
we did some partying for sure, you know. and
Nice.
and it was great. It was great, the camaraderie that we shared, and you know, working towards this goal of making a documentary, which I'm pretty proud of. You know, if you were there, if you lived the 80s, I think it's something that people enjoy to be reminded of that time. What really was a unique time in LA. Bob did. I had to kind of bow out after that, but he had, you know, was full on in that direction and created the other follow-up episodes and stuff. So.
Mm-hmm. And did Bob ever try to encourage you to you know, keep moving forward with Warrior? You know, even though it's been some time, because I know, like I said, he's always been a big champion of the band, and he's always wearing your shirt. He's still got that old Warrior shirt, and he's even got. I remember I was interviewing Sin Kieran, who's, you know, the ex-Ministry guitarist who loved Warrior, and he was so happy that Bob was able to get him a Warrior shirt from you, I guess, during some, you know, during the time you guys were putting out the series. So was he ever trying to get you to you know, because he's always been that kind of person, always wanted to encourage people to keep
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
stuff.
he
Yeah.
gave me a lot of encouragement to do that. He was such a fan. And I was reminded of that when we were at the his memorial the other day, looking at all the images of him on the screen and how often he had his Warrior shirt on.
Yep.
So, yeah, he was a great, booster, and of course that's very flattering to meet and hang around someone that's a big fan of your music and stuff. But Warrior has been a pretty dysfunctional band, honestly. So we pushed through and managed to do some albums in various incarnations of the group, but it just wasn't to be to do another one.
Yeah.
Not so far anyway. I won't say it's never say never, but
I think I saw something about a year or so ago that said you guys were thinking of doing an EP or something, but I guess it's nothing moving on that end, I guess.
you never know. The energy keeps coming back, but I'm real busy right now doing my thing, building guitars and stuff, which I love that too. I'm kind of torn, I miss playing and all that, but it's just there's not enough hours in a day to do everything, unfortunately.
Sure. No, absolutely. Well, Joe, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing some words with Bob, paying tribute to him. Is there any last words you want to say to Bob or about him and we'll wrap this up?
Well, I just want to say, Bob, love you, brother, and hope to see you on the other side. He's a beautiful human, and so grateful I got to know him.
Yeah.